Okay, one more demonstration with regard to organic modeling. So, let's give this a whirl and see how successful I am with this. This is similar to what we've seen so far with regard to using box modeling. Okay, so let me go ahead and zoom in a minute here so we can get really tight, because I just want a teeny tiny little box here. This will still be pretty big, actually. Let me zoom out a bit. Some thickness here. Okay, so this is going to become a fork, and the proportions look about right at the moment. So I might make it a little bit thinner. You know, I don't know. Well, you can always tweak the proportions later, but proportions are very important. So I'm trying to that's better. That looks pretty good, so I'll leave it at that. So you start with a basic, and why isn't it showing up here? Oh, because it's textured wire. Let's just look at wireframe. Why don't I see it? That's bizarre. Let me go ahead and, okay, there we go. I don't know why it wasn't visible. Let's see something here. Okay. Okay. Now, to get an idea of how this thing looks with subpatches turned on, you just hit the tab key. And it sort of looks like a tongue depressor, doesn't it? Or a surfboard or something along that order. So that's what we're going to do. We're going to toggle back and forth. And remember, to use subpatches, you have to maintain the 3 to 4 polygon points per polygon count. You can't exceed that. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use the knife tool. So that would be Shift-K. And I'm going to, maybe along the back here, this looks a pretty good place, so that I want the fork to taper in and out. Okay, so you're getting, this will be from about here to here will be the core of the handle. This tapers out and rounds out. And then out here, or up here, will be where we add the prongs. All right. So I'm going to go ahead and then right click, maybe right here. We'll make another cut right there. And then maybe another one right about in the middle, right about here. And that's about it. So I can hit Shift-K again, and we've added our, our cuts. Now what I want to do is I want to define the handle just a little bit. Now if I want, I can move points around, I can move segments around, do whatever I want. But I'm going to change the proportions right in here, and I can either select polygons or I can select points. Polygons might be a little bit easier right now. So if I right click and I lasso around these from the top view, you see that I have all those polygons selected. Now to resize this or to change the scale of it, it might be easiest if I go to modes and I select Action Center from selection, make sure that that's done. And then we can come back over here to modify, and I can hit the H key, and I can either hit the stretch key or resize. I just want to resize this, or to stretch it a little bit. Now from the back view, it might be easier for me, and you can look at all views while we're doing this, is if I move this in like so, Notice that the thickness remains the same, but what I've done is I've made this, considerably thinner right here. Does that make sense? What I'm doing? If it doesn't, you need to let me know. That's all I'm doing is I'm changing the proportions a little bit. And I can always come back and change that. So I'm going to turn and stretch off, deselect the polygons, and I'm going to hit Tab key again, see how this looks. And you'll see how it's changing the proportions considerably. But notice that if I want this to be even more pronounced, the way the end of a spoon or a fork would be, I probably need to make this even narrower here, don't I? So let's go back again. Let's hit the Tab key. With polygons selected, I select all of these so that I'm selecting from this view to make sure that all polygons, top, bottom, left, right, are selected. Go ahead and hit the H key for stretch, and I'm going to go ahead and stretch it in even a little bit more from the front view, like so. Really exaggerate it. Turn off stretch, go ahead and deselect polygons, and I'm going to hit the Tab key, and now you can see how it's more pronounced. If you recall when we watched the video the other day where the guy was making that sandworm, the monster, that some of the features he was creating really looked exaggerated when you were looking at the polygons, and as soon as he hit the Tab key, when you looked at it in subpatch, everything rounded off considerably. So you do have to exaggerate and toggle back and forth to see what you're doing, to make sure that what changes you've made, what proportions you're using look right, especially in the subpatch mode. So I'm going to toggle back off to change, and I'm going to leave the handle alone now because I'm fine with that. What I want to do now is I need to create the prongs for this. So I probably, if I remember correctly, I probably should have put, I'm going to go ahead and move this back a little bit, or I'm going to put another slice right here. Actually, I need to move this back a little bit. So I'm going to select the, I'm going to switch to 2 points. And I'm just going to select these guys for a minute. I'm looking at proportions here, and I'm going to hit T for move. I'm going to move it back just a little bit like so. And that looks about right. Turn off move, deselect points, and now I have to think for a minute here. Because, okay, I know what I want to do. This looks pretty good. I'm going to leave those proportions for a minute and see what works. Because what I need to do is I need to create enough geometry at the end here so I can pull out the prongs, don't I? I need to add geometry so I can pull out the prongs. Well, how do I do that? What I can do here is I can select polygons, and I'm going to select these polygons here. Because what we're going to do now in multiply under more is we want to use, if I can find it here. Sorry, it's up here, smooth shift. Or, no, I don't. What do I want? I want the bandsaw tool. So maybe bandsaw is under construct. More, no, I thought it was. Let's go back to multiply. Let's look under more. Anybody see bandsaw? Am I missing it? Huh? Where am I missing it?
Go to subdivide and then more into the
Subdivide. Oh, right here. Okay, looking in the wrong place. Bandsaw. I was thinking of it that it should be up here under the extended tools. Thank you. So we want bandsaw tool. But if I select the bandsaw tool, I should probably show you now. If I deselect, even if I select this, watch what happens. I'm going to go ahead and select bandsaw from here. And notice that it subdivides just these polygons. crosswise, but watch when I go ahead and I change the order of this. With the numeric requester, it says enable divide. I can go ahead, and if I go back to, I'm going to reset. You can see that it just says 1 divide here. And we can enable divide, and you see that there's 1 here. And it says auto here for direction. But if I select odd, notice that, and this is the direction I want, notice that it goes the whole way, whole length of my fork. And that's not what I want. Meaning I want that direction, but I don't want to subdivide the rest of the handle. It's added geometry that I don't need down here. So this is the part that I find is counterintuitive. So I'm going to go ahead and deselect, and I'm going to undo. And I'm going to, with these polygons selected, I'm going to cut and then paste. By cutting and pasting, it disconnects these two groups. Okay, so if I go ahead and I hit Command X for cut, and then I go ahead and hit Command V for paste, they're together, but it pastes it back on the same place, but they're no longer connected. So if I were to select these polygons again, like so, and I were to hit T for move, and I move them, see how they're no longer connected? So now when I use bandsaw and I slice them up, meaning I add the geometry uniformly, it adds it only to that point, to that part. I can add the geometry as needed, and then I'm going to stitch it back together. Now, this works in some cases it doesn't work. In this case, this particular instance, it does work. So I'm going to switch back to bandsaw. And instead of the default direction, I'm going to go ahead, I'm going to go ahead and select odd. And I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to enable divide. And what I also want to do is I want to add. So I'm going to go ahead and add some more. So under operation, I don't want edit. I'm going to go ahead and add. And I can click, and I can click, and I can click, and I can click. And what I want to do is make sure that uniform is selected. Now, every other one, notice how it uniformly cuts. It's like taking a bandsaw and literally slicing the whole thing. It's stitched together, but I'm adding geometry uniformly. So this would be 1, 2, 3. That won't work. I need to add another one. So I'm going to go ahead and add another. I'm going to go ahead and select uniform. So 1, 2, 3, 4 prongs. See how I'm clicking every other one? Does that make sense? I'm going to add geometry here, here, and here. I don't add it. I mean, the prongs are every other one. So if I have 4 prongs, I need how many slices? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 slices. Okay, so I'm done with a bandsaw. Boom, and I've added geometry. So now I can deselect the polygons, and now what I can do is I can look at the end of this from here, like so, and it might be easier if I view this texture wireframe, and now I can select here, and then I can hold down the Shift key, and I can select here, I can hold down the Shift key, and every other polygon at the end. Does everybody see what I've done? Now we use the tools that we've used before to add geometry to the end to pull out our prongs. We can use the Bevel Tool, right? So we can go ahead and hit B for bevel, and I can hit click, and that adds the geometry. I can hit T for move. I can pull some out. See how I'm pulling out the prongs now for the fork? I can go ahead and I can hit B for bevel again, click, and hit T for move. I think that ought to do it, because I'm going to bend this because I want it to look like it's curved a little bit. Could probably move this back a little like so, and conceivably add a little bit more geometry too. So I'm going to do that again just for the heck of it. B for bevel, click, T for move, and add, whoops, Whoops. No. Let's go back again. B for bevel. Click. T for move. And there we go, like so. Now the prongs might be, proportions might be really off. But what I'm doing here is I'm going to use this geometry in the middle here to be able to move it down. And I'm wondering if I just added too much, if I only needed one cut in the middle, and I think I did. I'm going to go back to here. I think I only need to add, no, I'm going to go ahead and redo that. Edit, redo. So I'm going to go ahead and leave that there. And deselect polygons now. Now, this looks more like a tuning fork, doesn't it, than it does a fork. So now what I can do is I need to think about maybe tapering the end. So once again, let's go ahead and let's select the end. Let's select the end. Let's select the end. Let's select the end. Whoops, I didn't want to do that. And now we can come from the front view, and under Modify, I can go ahead and I can select Stretch, and I'm going to go ahead and pull this down. I don't want to stretch it that way. I want to pull it down like so, so that it tapers it at the end. Does that make sense? See how it's tapered now at the end? That looks pretty good. And again, the mode was center of selection so that it did it evenly and uniformly from where I stretched. While we have this in this mode here, what I probably should do is, just to see how this looks, is I'm going to hit the Tab key. And you'll see a couple of things going on here. It does look more like a fork. There's a little bit of problem here, is that where I disconnected these, and I am going to have to reconnect them. Okay? And that's the next piece of work that we have to deal with. And I could probably, when I bend these, or even before I bend these, I should probably stretch these back in. The prongs are awfully long, but you can always go back and change proportions. It's not a big deal. But notice what what I've done here. So I've refined the end here. I need to create a bow in it. I have my handle. That looks pretty good, but I need to, as I said, create the little bow, the little curvature here. I need to reconnect the end prongs with the fork itself. But to reconnect the prongs with the fork, I do need to add a little bit of geometry to the handle. Not as much as I did before. So I'm going to hit the Tab key, turn that back. And what I want to do now is I'm going to select these end polygons down here, like so. And now these are all connected to these, so that's not a problem. I'm going to make 3 cuts, just so that we have 1 or 2 cuts, so that there's a total of 4 divisions, just to give us something to attach it to. So I'll go back to numeric request, or to Bandsaw Pro, and I don't need all of those cuts, so I'm going to go back to Actions is to reset, and I want to go ahead and enable divide. I want to go back here under direction. I'm going to select odd so it goes in that direction, and I'm going to go ahead and instead of edit, I'm going to add another cut like so. That's all I need. Let's add uniform. See how I've added a little bit of geometry? Much better than all the geometry I would have added here. But it gives me enough geometry to now reattach the handle to the prongs. Everybody follow what I'm doing here? Okay. So I'm done adding the geometry. Deselect. And now we use the Weld Tool, as we've done before. And because these are in position, it might be easier if I look in perspective and zoom in here and look at this in probably wireframe in order to do this. Okay? So I can, if I suppose I need to switch back to points, make sure that points are deselected. I can click here, and it looks like one point is selected, but in fact 2 points should be selected, right? Because I cut it apart, but they're sharing the same space. If we go back to detail and I select weld, it says 2 points welded. That's what I want. That's a good sign. You click OK. I can click down here, do the same thing. Select weld or Shift W, and that welds those. Let's go over on the other side, and I'll select these two. Select weld. OK. Select the bottom two. Select weld. OK. Now what I need to do, and this is the tougher part, is I need to select a point here, and I need to hold down the Shift key and select a point here, because I want this, or no, I wanted this to shift to this, so I'm going to deselect. I'm going to click here first, hold down the Shift key, and click here. Does everybody follow what I'm doing? Because I'm going to weld this to this. I don't want this to bend and move. I want this to bend and move to here. So that by selecting that first. So I'll select weld, 2 points selected, good. A-OK. Now I do the same thing. I click here, I select that 1 point. Oh, come on. Okay, let me look at just wireframe for a minute. And let's change this like so. I want to select this point. There we go. Now I can hold down the Shift key and select this one, and then let's select weld. 2 points, boom. Now I simply have to do that for the bottom, and that's not what I wanted to do. I wanted to weld it to the other side, so I'm going to undo. And I'm going to deselect. I want this point selected and this point selected. And now I weld them together. Boom, 2 points there. Now I have the bottom to do, and I should have them together. It should, when I hit the Tab key when I'm done, it should look much better because now they're joined back together. So again, kind of maneuvering so I don't select points that I don't want selected. I select this point first, and then I select this one, and I hope I've got the right ones, and I weld them together, 2 points. That looks right. And then let's move to the other side here. And I select this point, hold down the Shift key, and select this point, and now I weld the two together. Boom. Let's go back to texture view, see what we have here, and let's hit the Tab key. Notice how it holds together pretty nicely. Now the prongs, as I said, are just way, way too long. This also, you know, maybe we want this end to be wider. You know, so we can change the proportions, a lot of this stuff. This probably may not be a bad idea for me to move some of this in so that the prongs aren't quite so long. I mean, it's hard to tell at this point in time that when I move these points down and this curves, it might look pretty good. I could also extend the handle too in order to get the proportions right. I could also, if I want this wider, I can just select polygons or polygons at this end, because I want all of this wider at this end, so I can select all of this, and I can hit the stretch key or hit stretch, and I can widen it like so. So I am in a position of changing proportions. You know, it's nice if you have that sketched out ahead of time. But if you're sort of winging it, as I am, you know, then there's, and it's inevitable that some of the proportions are going to be off a little bit. I'm thinking here that, you know what, the prongs after I curve this will probably look just about right. It may look a little bit funky, but it will be okay. So I'm going to deselect the move tool or the stretch tool, deselect, and now I'm going to select these points here. If I can select, I have polygons selected, sorry. So let's go ahead and select points and hit T for move, and then pull this. Nope, I don't want those selected, sorry. Turn off T for move. I want these selected here. Hit T for move and move it down like so. Now notice I still have sub patches turned on. And notice how when you bend this, it doesn't look, I mean, it looks a little bizarre, doesn't it? Kind of cool though. UV mats, but that could be flexible. We'll see.